The Gospel of Gold by G.S. Lewis. Chapter 42. Forewarning. Following the guard's interlude, attention returned to Jinichi. He tapped his lip for a moment, trying to think where he'd left off. Presently, he smiled. Right, the Phoenix. First things first. Like I said before, I was locked in that room for a day and 2 nights. I didn't know what time it was, because I couldn't see outside, and my sleep pattern was way off. If you remember, we slept at Alan's place in Mahogany Town. Then about 2 minutes after I woke, Koga knocked me out again. So, when I came to, I was wide awake after that. Time dragged. I felt every minute 3 times over. I couldn't get away from that Abra's incessant mental repetitions. Not unless I broke out or slept myself. There was no waiting for that Abra to tire and fall asleep. He was always asleep. Jinichi smiled humorlessly. But we all have to sleep eventually. I finally wore myself out screaming after my second attempt to uproot the chair and shatter the window. I never did manage to rip it free of the bolts, and I bruised my shoulder pretty badly before deciding the glass was bulletproof. The pain distracted me from the mental assault, and it was about then that I became aware of singing. Now Jinichi became quiet again, and again there was a faraway look in his eyes. This time, however, the spark of life danced in his pupils, as if he were caught up in a waking dream. I could still hear Abra demanding that I save myself, but it was different now. I had my freedom to choose back, to focus on the music if I didn't want to hear Abra's chatter. So I tuned the Abra out, easy as blinking, and let the singing take me. The next thing I knew, I was looking down at myself. I think it was what people would call an out-of-body experience. The physical me was lying sprawled on the couch, but the real me was hovering above, light as air. I couldn't really control myself, so I couldn't look above me where the singing was coming from. All I could do was watch below as the room slid away beneath me, and I passed through the ceiling. I knew I wasn't dead or asleep in the usual sense, but alert and focused. The music swirled around me like an ocean current and brought me to different locations and visions. I saw Ekrutik from above, and there was this huge, halo? Golden and glowing in a circle all about the city. I got this intuition, without being told, that it was a protective barrier against evil. It didn't stop wicked people from passing through it, but while inside, every attempt at evil would be foiled somehow. I saw the other cities in flashes of sight. None of them had the protective halo that Ekrutik did, but there were some people with smaller halos on their heads. I didn't recognize any of them by face, except in Blackthorn, where Alan was staying. Jinichi smiled wryly. Don't ask me why I got to see Alan's halo, of all people. I would have liked to know if I had one, or Marina, or Lance, or you, Gold, though I'm pretty sure yours is the size of this whole police station. Gold felt his face flush, and looked down modestly. Metaphor or otherwise, there was no denying he had been under invisible protection, as his father had said. He'd needed all of it, too. There were other things, Jinichi went on, his smile fading. Not human, and not Pokemon. Black things, shapeless except for their mouths and teeth, which were always muttering. They were like smoke, almost invisible, and clung to some people. Sounds like Ghastly, observed Gold. Jinichi frowned. They weren't Pokemon, he insisted again. They had scales and were wrapped like tar around people's eyes and ears. But, Gold interrupted again. How can that be? Scales and tar? I thought you said they were like invisible smoke. His father gave him a disapproving look, and Jinichi's frown deepened to a scowl. Gold wilted. I know you hate being talked over when you say crazy-sounding things, Jinichi chided. So let me finish. I don't have proper words to tell it better. You're just going to have to imagine it yourself. My point is, they weren't friendly, and they certainly couldn't stand being anywhere near a golden halo. There are other sentient things in the world than people and Pokemon. Gold nodded, readily accepting the last bit, but still a little confused. This had been a story about Jinichi's imprisonment and impending escape, but it had turned into something else. Then I saw towers burning, said Jinichi, his face darkening. Not like the one you saw in your vision, where the phoenix first showed herself to you. These were works of destruction, done in mockery of her by the people with the black creatures attached to them. Sprout Tower of Violet City was in flames. The radio tower of Goldenrod burned. I think I saw Olivine Lighthouse too, though I've never been there. Jinichi pointed to the television in the corner, still playing a news broadcast on mute. I was watching for that when you came in. Of course, I've already warned the police to keep an eye on the towers, but I'm not sure they took me seriously. He looked at the guard in the corner. The officer did not say anything, but his face went carefully blank. That's horrible, gasped Gold, looking at Jinichi and glancing briefly at the television. Why would anyone try to burn the towers? They couldn't have seen Spirit, let alone know her well enough to mock her. Beside him, his father spoke up. It sounds to me like our friend was given a glimpse into the spirit realm, where the unseen war is waged. These people you mentioned may not realize what they're doing, but their clinging companions do. He crossed his arms. They may burn and destroy for different reasons than the original purpose, but it doesn't matter. The same end is achieved. Jinichi looked at him in wonder, then at Gold. I see where you get it, he said faintly. All this mystical stuff. It doesn't seem to surprise either of you. No, agreed Gold. But it is troubling. Was this a vision of the future you saw? I'm not sure, replied Jinichi, fidgeting nervously. I hope not. If it is, I hope it's preventable. One tower, at least, remained unburnt. His expression grew calmer. Bell Tower. It was the final part of my vision. At first, I found myself transported back to Ekrutik, gazing up at it. Then, I caught a flash of red, circling the sky about it. The next thing I knew, I was up there with it. Gold felt a knowing smile rise on his face, and Jinichi nodded. You guessed it. The phoenix took me on her back, and dream or vision, it was the closest I've ever been to her. By the slow circle she made, I got to see all of Johto from a bird's eye view. I know that probably doesn't sound remarkable compared to the other stuff, but... Jinichi's voice sounded like it had caught in his throat. He swallowed, and there was sweet pain in his eyes. With obvious effort, he continued. It was so beautiful. It pierced my heart. I couldn't imagine how I'd ever been tempted to save myself, while this land we've been gifted with falls into evil hands. And the phoenix, she was beautiful too, radiant beyond proper words. When she looked back at me, I forgot all about my own dreams and desires. I knew I was smaller than an ant in the grand scheme of things, but she regarded me like a samurai of the old days. She saw that I wanted to serve her and save our land if I could.
"Take heart, son of man,"
she told me in a tone that resonated with my spirit.
"Do not be discouraged by your lowly bearing or your imprisonment. You will have a part to play yet in the salvation of Johto."
I did not mean to speak then, but something about her presence, or simply being in astral form, put everything out in the open. I was incapable of hiding my feelings, so what came out was a mix of, what service can I provide? And how am I supposed to do anything while locked up? In short, I asked, what can I do?
"Wait for a man who is coming to you,"
she said.
"He is still broken, but will be made whole again in time.
He will take you with him, and you must go."